The Price of Power by Michael Michel. A brutal, beautiful look at what power really costs. You know when a book doesn't just shout to get your attention, it's just quiet and it gets under your skin? The Price of Power by Michael Michel is one of those books. It's not flashy, it's not racing for a checklist of fantasy tropes, it's not trying to impress you with giant info dumps of lore. Instead, it hurts. It's slow, creeping way that builds up until you realize you're completely pulled in and deeply uncomfortable. But you don't stop reading. This is fantasy with weight, emotional highs, emotional weight, world building, trauma weight. If you're here for a tidy, feel good adventure with a hero who gets stronger and saves the world, this ain't it. But if you want something raw, thoughtful, and brutally honest about what power does to people, it's one of the best reads I've had in a while. Now, we're not starting with a hero on a journey, we're starting with a man who's basically lost everything, and I'm not going to give you too many spoilers on that. This character has a journey from power to nothing. Whatever is left is the heart of the book. He's not out to reclaim a throne or fulfill a prophecy, he's trying to survive, piece together what's left for him and figure out who he is after being utterly broken. And honestly, it's heartbreaking. But it's also compelling in a way that fantasy rarely is. He feels real. He's not some stoic anti-hero for the sake of being cool. He's withdrawn because he's hurt. Deeply, he's full of guilt, shame, pain, and a flicker of something that refuses to die. That's what makes him fascinating to follow. And he's not alone. The book has a big cast. But nobody feels like a background extra. Even the people you hate, you understand them. Everyone is carrying something. Everyone is bleeding in some way. One of the best things about this book, the world feels tired. Not boring, not lazy, tired in a good way. Like it's lived through centuries of war, power struggles, and pain. And now everybody is just trying to make it through another day. There's the constant feeling that things are fraying at the edges, that something's broken and it can't be fixed. And that makes every little moment of kindness or resistance feel like a miracle. Michel doesn't throw giant world maps at you or magic charts. He lets you learn through the characters' eyes, through the scars they carry, through the stories they tell, often broken, often half remembered. It's subtle, but it works. There's politics, there's rebellion, there's class. But it's all tied into the characters' experiences, not dumped on you. That makes the world feel more real because it's shaped by people, not just the plot. Let's make this very clear. This book isn't just dark for the sake of being edgy, it's dark because it's honest. It sits in the trauma, it lingers in the aftermath, it asks what happens when the worst has already happened. When you're still breathing, but everything inside you feels broken. That means that the pacing is slower in some places, but that's the point. Healing doesn't move in a straight line. Flashbacks hit like a gun punch. Conversations are quiet, tense, sometimes full of things left unsaid. Michel's writing style really shines here. It's poetic. It's without being pretentious, emotional without being over the top. It feels like the restraint and the poise. Like even the writing is trying not to cry. And when things finally break open, it hits much harder than it should. And when characters do talk, it feels real. Nobody's monologuing. They're scared or angry or trying not to say what they really feel, and sometimes they crack and sometimes they explode. This is something I really respect. Violence in the book hurts. Not just physically, but morally. There's no glory to it, no slow-mo, cool one-liners. Every act of violence feels messy, personal, and ugly. And more importantly, it leaves the emotional wreckage behind. The character in principle is forced to do things that eat him away. And you're not told how to feel about it. You feel it right alongside him. There are fights, there are deaths, but Michel's writing, The way it happens, it just works. What it means to live with those choices when you become what you become when survival demands things you swore you'd never do. You don't cheer for revenge into the book, you ache through it. Is it worth it? Yes. Yes, it is, but it's not easy. This isn't a popcorn read. This isn't something you breeze through in a weekend and move on. It sits with you. It asks you things that many books don't: emotional investment, patience, and willingness to feel things that aren't pleasant. But if you stick with it, it rewards you in a huge, big way. That's the real story here, the real sense of transformation by the end, not just for the characters, but for you as a reader. You start to see the cost of power everywhere. You start looking at trauma differently. You start to understand that some scars don't fade. They become part of who you are without defining you. So here are my final thoughts. If I had to sum up The Price of Power in one sentence, it would be this. It's not about winning power back. It's about figuring out whether you can live with yourself after everything powerful has been taken away from you. Michael Michel does not just write a good fantasy novel, he writes what matters. Ones that hurt, ones that's quietly doing something a lot of epic fantasy forgets how to do: tell the truth. So yeah, if you're ready for a fantasy book that hits like grief, burns like shame, and leaves a tiny flickering light of hope in its wake, read this one. Maybe keep a blanket and a nice hot chocolate nearby. You're probably going to need them.